I'd like to call to order the Monday, August 29th special finance meeting of the Fall River School Committee. Let's do our salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Deb, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Agia?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee? Here. Ms. Pereira?
Here.
Ms. Roderick? Here. Mayor Coogan?
Here. Citizens' input. We have 3 items tonight. I'll ask Deb to please read them. Our first is from Nelson Vasquez, Sunset Hill, Fall River.
Good evening to the Fall River School Committee. So, Paulie Boy, your propaganda local news reporter said last week that there's nothing wrong with the Atlantis Charter School proposal, even though the week before they reported the busking was sold for 3 times less the price. If you have nothing to hide, why is this committee going to discuss this proposal in executive session? Also, why did you censor city residents, including myself, at the last meeting? You violated my civil rights and infringed on my constitutional right to freedom of speech. I asked the school committee to vote for one of the other proposals and not the Atlantis Charter School deal. Who is going to receive the kickbacks? It's bad enough that the planning board individual looking to sell the building has been getting construction contracts as well. Do you smell a huge violation of the ethics law here? I do. Nelson Vasquez, 210 Sunset Hill, Fall River, Mass.
Next up, Colin Dias, Ray Street, Fall River.
Good afternoon, members of the Fall River School Committee. On today's agenda, we see 4 proposals for space for the school department's pre-K program. I, as one city resident, completely support the pre-K program, and I wish to applaud the administration and the superintendent for its swift and rapid development of the program. And I am excited to see this come to fruition. What I am not in favor of, however, how we have 3 proposals for a pre-K space and 1 proposal, the same proposal we had issues with at the last meeting, is being discussed in executive session. That is not transparent government. Nobody said anything inaccurate at the last meeting. The Atlantis Charter School was sold by Ken Malacone to a John Ferreira of the Planning Board. Now Mr. Ferreira wants to sell this building to the school department for 3 times the cost, just 1 week after purchasing the building. Those are all facts, indisputable facts. No one can dispute them. That is downright shady, and the school committee has no business supporting shady deals. Now, the mayor went on a tangent after the previous meeting citizens' inputs, criticizing city residents for calling for an investigation into this, disrespecting the city residents. He mentioned recalls. I didn't hear any citizen input mention the word recall. The only city residents I hear mentioning the word recall recently, Mr. Mayor, are your own supporters. I don't think that's very positive then, and I think it's inflammatory to the politics of our city. You should, Mr. Mayor, condemn their recall. Regardless, I do not believe it is proper for the mayor to disrespect city residents for speaking their opinion at citizens' input, saying he won't respond to inputs just because they didn't support him politically. We all deserve fair and equal by our elected officials. I respectfully ask members of the school committee to vote down the Atlantis Charter School deal. This should be looked into. As a city, we should condemn any and all corruption, regardless if it is sponsored by Mayor Coogan or not. Thank you very much for your time. Colin Dias, 560 Ray Street.
And Jeff Godrow, Palmer Street, Fall River.
Good afternoon, school committee members. I would like to make my comment clear that I would also like to see the school committee deny the Atlantis School deal and support another building for the pre-K slots. I fully support the pre-K initiative and give full credit and praise to the superintendent and the administration for getting this project done. Let's do what's right for a transparent and great Fall River. Let's no longer censor city residents. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Deb. First item on the agenda is discussion and vote to approve a 3-year lease of a building of a pre-K expansion as presented by Ken Pacheco. Superintendent.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, and school committee, at this time, we'd like to withdraw this proposal.
Any objections? Hearing none. Do we have to call the roll on that, Bruce? No.
Yeah, you should.
Could you please call the roll, please?
I need a motion.
A motion to withdraw.
Motion to withdraw.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Thanks, Bruce.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. Item number 2 is discussion and vote to approve a 1-year lease for the property located at 300 Northeastern Avenue for use of pre-K classrooms plus additional space as presented by Ken Pacheco, Chief Operating Officer. Any discussion on this lease with St. Anthony of the Desert? Mr. Pacheco.
Good evening, everyone. We're looking for, or we have been looking for, space for pre-K for quite some time. And during the summer, the process started with an RFP. That process finished just recently on the 17th of August with 2 items, and which we've just withdrawn on those 2. In the meantime, Montessori School had closed, and the location for that Montessori school is now available. We took a look at that, walked the building, and decided that that would be a suitable location for us to have our pre-K startup in September. In your package, you have a document, a preliminary document with a cost and a signature that they are in approval of us going there, and we would just need to do our portion of this, which is the contract, and incorporate these items into that. So the property is ready to go. The city has done its approvals with the previous tenant, and we will do a reinspection as a cursory check on what's been done. Any questions?
Any questions on the Northeastern Avenue proposal? Ms. Larrabee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly on the safety of the building.
Yes.
Just to ensure that we're focused on that as well. I didn't really,
So the building is locked.
Okay.
It's in that mode from its previous tenant. And as I said, we toured the building. We have a location in the back that we will set up a small little play area. We'll take care of securing that area at our expense. But I think this does exactly what we want it to do. It's going to give us a holdover spot so that we can take care of our immediate needs. And then later on in the agenda, we have some other plans for long-term solutions.
okay, thank you. I yield.
Anything further, Mr. Aguirre?
Just the 12 months, it's 1 year, so that's from September 1 to September 1?
Yes,
So if we needed it in the summer next year, that's still an
Yes.
option?
yes.
And you had mentioned the cost of the securing the playground, but is there any other costs when we look at it as far as what we're responsible for to get that up to code or whatever's got to be done?
Just furniture. So we'll bring in some furniture that we were planning on bringing somewhere. So we have furniture, and if there's anything else in the building, small items, we can take care of that.
Great. Has there been a motion already? Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Deb, please call the roll.
No.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes,
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. We are going to stay in order, so we can do this a little bit right now. I know it's something that we're going to talk about later, too. Discussion item 3.3 is the long-term pre-K option to be located at 1207 Globe Street. It's the old stone school for modular classrooms and options to include lease or purchase, as presented by Ken Pacheco. This is just a discussion.
So I've enclosed a couple of documents. One is a rough order of magnitude on pricing for a 8-unit rental. This would have been something we could probably do in 10 to 12 weeks, but it isn't designed for pre-K. So this was just to give us an idea as to what it would look like on the inside. If you go over to the drawing, there are 8 classrooms, of which 6 of them we would use as pre-K classrooms, separated by the restrooms. And then the last 2, technically the first 2 where people would enter, one would be nurses area, and then whether we do OTPT speech in that general area. So typically, we would set up trailers in this configuration, and 3 setups, as you see here, connected in a U shape would be what we're looking for as a long-term solution, which would give us 18 classrooms or 15 classrooms and some open space for indoor recess, things like that, large areas. At this age level, they're eating in the classrooms, so we wouldn't need a cafeteria area, but there may be some other rooms that we may need for other ancillary services. So this is just a guide. Again, this is not a quote, but just to give us a dollar amount. And if the committee wanted us to move in this direction for a long-term plan, I would say the sooner the better. If we want to think about that in the near future, we can start developing that process with an RFP for material and also inspectional services in the city side in order to facilitate the proper permitting and notices to neighborhood and such for a construction project that would probably take place within a year to 14 months.
Any discussion on, it's just a proposal, and you would come back to us with much firmer
Absolutely.
money, size,
Yes.
all the requirements necessary to have a successful pre-K program there?
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is just to kick it around right now. Anybody have anything? Ms. Larrabee?
Well, should we maybe vote and let him to move on to go
it's
get an
just
RFP, or?
If that's the will of the committee.
The item says discussion.
Yeah, it's
It's-
just
And that's what I'm concerned about, too. Let's do a discussion. Anything further, Mr. Aguirre?
Yeah, just, I think this is part of a long-term plan, but what I'm looking for is much greater information to the committee relative to the long-term plan for pre-K, and you know I've been an advocate for pre-K for a long time. But at the same time, we have to balance that with the needs of the entire district. So what I would be looking for would be something that's comprehensive, looking at, have we looked at every building in the city, which I know we've done a lot of this, but coming up with a package for the committee to review that says, here's everything we looked at, here's what the data indicates, here's how many the numbers are, where they're located, and I've always been saying that keeping things the same is not always going to be the best thing here. So I'm looking for something bold. I'm looking for something to come from the superintendent and her leadership team that's going to say, we're going to do things a little different than we normally did, whether it be another K-8 school, a K-2 school, an early childhood center specifically. All of those options, I think, should be on the table. So when we vote, I'm only going to vote on something that's comprehensive and long-term as a project. That's me personally, speaking for myself. The other thing that I think we all need to get real about is the funding. Where the funding comes from, how the funding's going to come. I've been saying for months, we need to negotiate with the city to figure out a way that we can have some bondability so we can actually we can say we're going to purchase anything we want. And you know what? If we don't have any different regulations, we're purchasing nothing because we don't have that mechanism in place. So I really think that that needs to be part of this discussion. So I'm not opposed to any of what you have here, Mr. Pacheco. We have a lot of things going on. We also have the Wiley School where we had, whatever that process is to do a feasibility and all that stuff. That's a small little place. And one of the meetings, I can't remember what, over a year ago, I was flabbergasted when that was going to cost us $6 million or total to get that up to snuff for a small amount of classes. So in the back of my head is always that number of $6 million for that little place without, it's all the way in the north end. So speaking for me, I'm always looking at it to say $6 million for that, or what are we going to do for this? But right now, we can't buy anything until we get the other pieces done. So I do support it, and when I said discussion only, I personally don't think you're ready for an
Absolutely
RFP,
not.
you know? So I wasn't trying to, tell Committeewoman Larrabee, terminology here. The bottom line is, I just don't think you're ready, but I'm looking for comprehensive process of this entire thing, working with the city to come up with some funding. And the other piece that I think is a big one is, can we use ESSER funds for some things and not? When you tell us that we can spend something on ESSER versus something else, now we're in a totally different ballgame. So I think you understand those. We've had conversations, so I don't want to belabor the point, but please come back with something real comprehensive,
Sure.
and I'd be happy to look at it and support it. Thank you. I yield.
Mr. Hart?
Just real quick, Kenny, when do you anticipate coming back to us for the modules on Globe Street?
So obviously, everything that I give you is going to strictly be opinion
Yep.
when it comes to pricing, because I can't ask the companies. This here is strictly an opinion, no hard numbers, and any further requests that I make through companies are going to be that, because they're going to end up bidding on this project in a competitive sense. Purchasing trailers is not like purchasing buildings, so it is an ESSER eligible piece. It's mobile, but it is more equipment than it is a building, so that there are some differences. And also, a building like this here, on that piece of property that we already own, we've eliminated one big chunk of that, and that's the purchase of a property, because we own the property at Globe Street. So I fully agree with Committeeman Aguirre that we do have to be bold, and we do have to color outside the lines here, and hopefully we'll come up with a plan. I'm going to tell you it won't be in September, if that meeting is around the corner, but the caution that I put in what I'm saying now is that supply line, getting material, all of those things are going to come in. We may set up to buy these trailers, and these trailers are 10, 20, 50 weeks out, 60 weeks out. We would be looking at something, in 24. So I don't know that.
Good.
And until we ask some more questions, I can get that information.
That's fine.
So those are the kind of things that I can bring back, along with the other plans of whether it's a K-8, another elementary school, things like that. We can incorporate all of that.
All right,
And it
thank
will
you.
be a comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you. Mr. Pacheco. Item 5 is a request for executive session. Attorney Assad, do we have a reason to go into executive session?
Yes, we do.
You want to read the
Sure.
reason, please?
Sure. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at 2501 South Main Street, Fall River, Massachusetts. As the chair has declared that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the school committee, we would reconvene. There may or may not be statements at that time.
I'm looking for a motion, a second.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Deb, please call the roll to go into executive session.
Mr. Aguirre?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes.
Day, exactly. We do it on the Sunday.
Back from executive session. Deb, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Aguirre?
Here.
Mr. Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee?
Here.
Ms. Pereira?
Here.
Ms. Roderick?
Here.
Mayor Coogan?
Here. New business, anything to come before the committee? Mr. Aguirre.
Yes, just based on the nature sometimes of an emergency lease and needs that come up with the children, that we might need to lease space. I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the superintendent to spend up to $150,000 for any additional emergency leases that are needed throughout the school year.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion on Mr. Aguirre's motion? Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Everybody wants to stay?
I do.
I got a motion, a second. Deb, please
I
call
thought,
the
I
roll.
thought.
Mr. Agia?
Mr. Aguirre, yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Ms. Pereira?
Yes.
Ms. Roderick?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes, adjourn.